Everything that you experience through your outside world and through life, it's giving you feedback and a signal of what's actually going on inside of you. And the ironic thing is, we get so focused on trying to change the outside that we don't realize that when you actually start to change the inside, that's when you start to see the shifts and the reflection becomes different on the outside. So to paint the picture of this a little bit more clearly, I'm going to use the example of if you feel fear of being judged by others. So you have a fear that people are always judging you or not approving of you, or have some kind of negative perception of you and you're never good enough. So if you feel that way, then that is a signal that there is a part of you that feels that feels like it can't belong, that feels not good enough, that feels like in order to survive, you have to get approval from others. But the way to actually work on this on the very root level is to connect to the part of you. There may be multiple parts that feel that way. And the way that you can do this is there's multiple ways. You can get into a meditative state and call the part of you forward. Just ask yourself, where in my body do I feel this part? If you have a good connection to your body and you can get a sense of where it is. And honestly, a lot of this is also using our imagination, which is, I believe, is not actually imaginary, and it is the way we are able to connect to our inner world and the unseen realms. So you can do it through meditation, you can do it through writing, you can write to that part and you can have it respond. And all of this really requires you to just take some time and space to connect to these parts, because a lot of times we're just kind of letting these parts express through us and we're not actually giving the time and space to be present with them. And that's what actually creates the shift. When you start to create a relationship with them, you're able to cultivate more compassion for yourself and really understand why this is happening and get to the actual root of it, instead of working on all of the symptoms and just covering up the wound with a bunch of band-aids. You're actually able to experience shifts from the inside that then support you to show up differently, because then you're showing up for those parts. You start to build a relationship and they can start to trust you again, and then you can be that guide for them, and you can be there for yourself and support yourself. And then the desire to be accepted by others starts to fall away, because you no longer are looking for the approval of others, because you realize that the only approval you actually ever need is your own. And the only reason that you felt like you weren't receiving approval from others was because those parts of you that felt judged weren't getting that connection and approval from you. But the way it was showing up to let you know it was there was through your relationships with other people in the world. If this is really interesting, this parts work is really interesting to you, I would highly recommend checking out doing some kind of like inner child healing. That can come up also during hypnotherapy. And also a really awesome book that I highly recommend, that I feel like everyone should be reading, is called No Bad Parts by Schwartz. And he's the one who actually introduced this concept of parts, and how we have these parts within us that as children, when something traumatic happens, whether it's big T or little t trauma, these parts change their roles and then they get kind of stuck in that role, and then we have to liberate them from that role so they can go back to their natural role, which is usually a lot more supportive for us, but because they have shifted the role, they kind of like freeze into that state and don't realize that we're no longer 6 and need them to keep doing the role they've been doing for all these years. And this is truly what it means to liberate yourself from within. It means being able to connect to parts of you, the parts of you that are afraid, the parts of you that feel ashamed, the parts of you that you don't want to ever admit exist, the parts of you that have always felt not good enough or unworthy, or your existence doesn't matter. Whatever it is, when you start to connect and really listen to what those parts have to say, and you start to ask them, what do you need from me? How can I support you? Your whole experience starts to change. You get to know yourself on such a deep level. No amount of therapy and all these things that address more the symptoms is ever going to get you there as connecting directly to what's inside of you.